Have you ever tried to hold your breath for a long time? After about a minute, it gets pretty hard, doesn't it? Your body doesn't want to deprive you of oxygen anymore. And it's a really complex web of communication that's going on that doesn't allow you to hold your breath for more than probably a minute or so. Your blood has a lot of carbon dioxide in it because cells are disposing of it after cell respiration. Chemical signals are sent to the brain about the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood. The brain then sends a signal to involuntary muscles in the lungs to take in air. So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain the purpose of the respiratory system and describe how cell respiration and breathing are related. Breathing is the process of taking in oxygen from the environment and exhaling carbon dioxide. It's related to the process of cell respiration. Cell respiration requires oxygen and produces carbon dioxide as a waste product. This oxygen is breathed in, moved into the lungs, and then delivered to the cells that need energy. The waste product carbon dioxide leaves the cells and moves into the bloodstream. From there, it's deposited into the lungs and breathed out while you exhale. The purpose of the respiratory system is to exchange gas with the environment. Just to review, oxygen is needed for aerobic respiration, also called cell respiration. This process happens in the mitochondria of your cells and uses glucose and oxygen to produce ATP. In cell respiration, glucose is broken down slowly, and little by little, its energy is transferred to ATP. So ATP stores energy for a short time until our cells use it. When our cells need to use it, a phosphate is broken off and energy is released. This process produces carbon dioxide as a waste product. Too much carbon dioxide is not good for our bodies, because when it dissolves in our blood, it makes our blood acidic. Remember what happened when we put an egg in acidic vinegar? The shell, which is made of roughly the same stuff as our bones, was dissolved. So it's not a good thing for the blood to be acidic. To get rid of the carbon dioxide, it travels to our lungs, where it's breathed out. How does this breathing process happen? There's a muscle just under our rib cage called our diaphragm. When the diaphragm contracts, it moves downwards, causing our rib cage to expand. Because there's more room in your chest, air rich in oxygen rushes into your lungs. When we exhale, the diaphragm muscle relaxes, making the rib cage smaller and pushing out carbon dioxide-rich air. Let's follow an air molecule as it moves through your respiratory system. Air is able to enter your respiratory system through either your mouth or your nose. Breathing through your nose is actually better for you because nose hairs filter out dust particles and bacteria. It also spends a longer time in the body, so it's warmed by the heat of our bodies and moistened by the water vapor that's present in our respiratory tract. This is important because more oxygen can reach our lungs if it's warm and moist. From the nose or mouth, the air moves to the pharynx. This is the back of our throat, where the esophagus and trachea, or windpipe, meet. There's a flap of tissue in our throats called the epiglottis, which keeps things moving down the right pipe. But I'm sure you've experienced something going down the wrong pipe. There are muscles in the trachea that push out liquid, and so make you cough when you swallow something down the wrong pipe. The trachea is another name for the windpipe. The sides of the trachea are lined with cells that have cilia on the outside. Remember that cilia are hair-like projections that move back and forth on the outside of a cell. Sometimes they're used to move the cell, but in the trachea they're used to sweep mucus away from the lungs. The respiratory system is lined in a thin coat of mucus that traps dust and bacteria so they don't block or infect the lungs. The cilia that line the trachea sweep that mucus out so that it can either be coughed up or swallowed. Among the many harmful things that smoking does is it damages these cilia so that they no longer move back and forth, especially at night. This is why heavy smokers usually have a cough most of the time. They need to use the muscles in their chest to cough out the mucus, in comparison to a person who doesn't smoke, who just lets all the cilia do the work. The trachea leads to two large branches of the lungs called the bronchi. One bronchus leads to each lung. So this is the trachea coming down from our pharynx, also called the windpipe, and here's a bronchus going to each side of the lungs. As we get deeper into the lungs, the bronchi branch and form a sort of upside-down tree of bronchioles. Bronchi are the two large branches that come off the trachea, and any branches smaller than that are considered bronchioles. Eventually, bronchioles end in air sacs called alveoli. Alveoli is where gas is actually exchanged. So this is a picture of an alveoli. It looks like little bubbles almost. And capillaries surround the alveoli, and it's here that the gas actually moves from the lungs into the bloodstream. Let's take a close-up view of one of the alveoli. Blood flows to the lungs from the right side of the heart so that it can get oxygen. So here's the blood flowing from the right side of the heart. The blood that comes in has a low amount of oxygen and a high amount of carbon dioxide. So we need to apply what we know about diffusion to this situation. Each substance is going to move independent of the other. Because there's more carbon dioxide in the blood, that carbon dioxide is going to move out of the blood and into the alveoli. There's more oxygen in the lungs, so it will move from a high concentration in the lungs to a low concentration in our blood. Now that the blood has been oxygenated, it will continue through the bloodstream and back to the left side of the heart so that it can be pumped out to the rest of the body. So don't forget to go back and take the quiz that's on Edline. Just like always, it's in the assignments folder. And here is a preview of the questions on your quiz.